You know, life's got this funny way of throwing curveballs at you when you're not looking. So, there I was, showing up to this fancy charity gala that one of our top clients was hosting. Now, I wasn't all that eager to go, but my buddy Jack kept pushing me. "Come on, man, it'll do you some good," he said. "You gotta get out there more." So I gave in, and man, was I glad I listened. The second I walked into that ballroom, heads started turning. But it wasn't because of me. Nah, it was all thanks to the stunning woman on my arm. Her name was Vanessa Gray, with this long cascade of auburn hair and a figure that could stop traffic. She wore this dress that hit just the right note between classy and daring. The way she carried herself made everyone else in the room disappear into the background. We were chatting and laughing, just blending in with the crowd, when I suddenly spotted a familiar face across the room, my wife, Emily. The look on her face when she saw me? She looked like she'd just seen a ghost. I hadn't mentioned I'd be here, and it was obvious she didn't expect to see me, especially not with someone like Vanessa. Emily made her excuses to the folks she was talking to and strutted over, her eyes locked onto Vanessa the whole way. She didn't even glance my way. Instead, she glared at Vanessa and spat out, "How can you sleep with him? He's weak in bed and a failure in life." The whole room went dead silent, everyone now zeroed in on us. "Vanessa?" She didn't even flinch. She just looked Emily up and down, then said in a calm, clear voice, "Security. Who let this cheap trash in here?" You could hear the gasps around us, and sure enough, a couple of security guys showed up in seconds. Emily's face turned bright red, somewhere between rage and pure embarrassment. She tried to pull herself together, but Vanessa wasn't done yet. With a smirk, she added, "Next time you want to insult someone, make sure you're not standing on shaky ground." Emily looked like she was ready to fire back, but before she could get a word out, Jack, who'd been watching from a distance, walked over and said, "Emily, it's time for you to leave." Security moved in and escorted her out, but not before she turned and shouted at me, "You'll regret this. You hear me? You'll regret it." I turned to Vanessa, who was now the center of attention. She just shrugged and said, "Well, that was dramatic." As the night carried on, I couldn't help but think about the irony. Here I was, supposedly the weak and loser husband, standing tall while Emily's web of lies started to come undone. Little did she know, tonight was just the opening act. The real fireworks were just getting started. The next morning, my phone was blowing up with texts and missed calls from Emily. She was flipping between apologizing and throwing threats, clearly a mix of desperation and anger. But I was done with her games. It was time for me to take back control of my life. As I sat there sipping my coffee, my phone buzzed again. It was Jack. "Hey man, you free for lunch? We need to talk about last night." "Sure thing," I replied. I knew Jack had more insight into Emily's antics, and I was eager to hear what he had to say. We met up at our usual spot, a small, quiet bistro that was perfect for private chats. Soon as I walked in, I saw him at a corner table, looking dead serious. "Hey," I greeted him as I sat down. "You all right?" he asked, his concern plain as day. "Yeah, surprisingly." "What's up?" Jack leaned in and lowered his voice. "I've got some news, and it's not good. Emily's been lying to you about a lot more than just her affair." I wasn't entirely shocked, but I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. "What do you mean?" "She's been bad-mouthing you to anyone who would listen, playing the victim card. She's even tried to wreck your reputation at work. But here's the kicker, she's been stealing money from your joint account." Anger surged through me. "How did you find out?" Jack explained. "I've got a buddy at the bank who noticed some strange transactions. We dug a bit deeper and found out she's been funneling money into a separate account." "Unbelievable," I muttered. "I trusted her." "Yeah, well, it's time to take action. I already talked to a lawyer for you. You need to freeze the accounts and gather up all the evidence you can. This is gonna get messy." I nodded, grateful for Jack's support. "Thanks, man. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'd do the same for me," he said, giving my shoulder a reassuring clap. That afternoon, I took Jack's advice. I called the bank, froze the accounts, and set up a meeting with the lawyer. I also started pulling together every piece of evidence I could find: texts, emails, bank statements. I wasn't about to let Emily walk all over me anymore. That evening, Emily barged into the house, her face twisted with fury. "What the hell is this?" she screamed, waving a piece of paper at me. It was a notice from the bank. "I'm protecting myself," I said calmly. "You've been lying, cheating, and stealing from me. This ends now." She let out a bitter, hollow laugh. "You think you can just cut me off? I'll ruin you. I'll take everything. Good luck with that," I shot back, standing my ground. "I've already talked to a lawyer. You're not getting away with this." Her eyes narrowed, a flash of anger crossing her face. "You think you're so clever, don't you?" she hissed. "Well, you're gonna regret this. You have no idea what I'm capable of." Then, with a final glare, she stormed out of the house. Strangely, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The fight was just beginning, but I was ready for it. Claire had finally shown her true colors, and now it was my turn to push back. The days that followed were a chaotic blur of legal meetings, trips to the bank, and sleepless nights. Jack was my rock through it all, making sure I had everything in order. The lawyer he connected me with, a sharp and tough-as-nails woman named Laura, was relentless in seeking justice on my behalf. One afternoon, I found myself sorting through some old boxes up in the attic, digging through years of memories. Inside one box, I stumbled upon old photos, mementos from vacations, and letters from Claire. As I sifted through it all, I noticed a crumpled piece of paper tucked at the bottom. It was a handwritten note from someone named Alex, describing a passionate night he'd shared with Claire. My hands shook as I read it. The date? It was from years ago, long before her more recent betrayals. I took a deep breath, knowing it was time for a real confrontation. I picked up the phone and called Claire, telling her to come home. "We need to talk," I said, keeping my voice firm. She walked in a while later, her face set in a defiant scowl. "What now?" she snapped. I held up the note. "I found this," I said calmly. "How long have you been lying to me?" Her eyes widened for a split second before she quickly regained her composure. "That was a long time ago," she muttered. "It meant nothing." "Nothing?" I barked. "You've been betraying me for years, Claire. How many others were there?" She crossed her arms, her face turning cold. "Does it matter?" she sneered. "We're over. Just give me what I'm owed, and I'll be out of your life." "What you're owed?" I let out a bitter laugh. "You've already taken enough. This ends now." Things were about to escalate when the doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Vanessa, the stunning woman from the gala, standing there with a couple of police officers. "Is everything all right here?" one of the officers asked, looking between Claire and me. "Actually, officer," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I need to file a report. I've discovered that my wife has been embezzling money from our joint account." Claire's face went pale. "You can't prove that," she hissed. "Oh, I can and I will," I replied, handing over a folder filled with the evidence that Jack and I had painstakingly gathered. Vanessa stepped forward, her presence demanding everyone's attention. "Claire, it's over. You need to leave now." Claire looked like she was about to argue, but with the police officers standing there, she thought better of it. She grabbed a few belongings, turned to me, and spat out, "This isn't over. You'll regret this, all of you." Then she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I felt a massive weight lift off my shoulders. Vanessa turned to me with a reassuring smile. "You did the right thing. Now it's time to rebuild." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind, but slowly, things started falling into place. The court froze Claire's accounts and began the process of recovering the stolen funds. Laura was confident we had a strong case, and Jack continued to be by my side every step of the way. One evening, I sat out on the porch with Vanessa, feeling a rare sense of calm. "Thank you for everything," I said, looking into her eyes. She smiled and rested her hand on mine. You're stronger than you think, she replied. This is just the start of a new chapter. As we sat there, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I realized that despite all the hurt and betrayal, I was finally ready to move forward. Claire's lies had been exposed, and now it was my turn to find some happiness and peace. The weeks after Claire's dramatic exit were packed with court dates, depositions, and a mountain of paperwork. Each new discovery about her deceit felt like another punch to the gut, but I was determined to see it through. With Jack and Vanessa standing by me, I knew I could handle whatever came next. One afternoon, I got a call from Laura. "I've got some news," she said. "It's about Claire. You might want to sit down for this." I braced myself. "What is it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "We've uncovered something big," Laura continued. "Claire wasn't just embezzling from you. She's been involved in a larger scheme, defrauding several other people as well. This is much bigger than we initially thought." A mix of shock and anger hit me all at once. "How did we not catch this sooner?" I asked, my mind racing. "She covered her tracks well," Laura explained. "But now that we've got the evidence, we can pursue additional charges. This will really strengthen your case." The news was both a relief and a burden. Claire's betrayal ran deeper than I'd ever imagined, but it also meant she was facing some serious consequences now. That evening, while sorting through more documents, I came across an old diary of Claire's. I hesitated for a moment before opening it. The entries painted a picture of a woman who'd been unhappy for a long time, but instead of getting help or ending things the right way, she chose deceit and betrayal. One particular entry caught my eye. "Jake makes me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years. But it's not just about him. It's the thrill of it all, the secrets, the lies. It's intoxicating. I know it's wrong, but I can't stop." Reading those words felt like a punch straight to the gut. She wasn't just unhappy, she was hooked on the chaos she'd created. It was clear as day that Claire had been spiraling on this self-destructive path for years, dragging me right along with her. The next morning, I brought the diary to Laura. "This might help explain her motives," I said, handing it over. Laura nodded, flipping through the pages. "It's damning," she replied. "But it also shows a pattern of behavior that will definitely support your case. We'll use this." As the court date approached, a mix of anxiety and determination kept me on edge. Claire had done everything she could to break me, but here I was, still standing, ready to face her one last time. On the day of the hearing, the courtroom was packed. Claire sat across from me, her face set in a mask of defiance. But when she saw the stack of evidence we had, including that diary, I could see her confidence waver. The judge listened intently as Laura presented our case, laying out every detail. When it was Claire's turn to speak, she put on the act of the victim, tears streaming down her face. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she cried. "I was lost and made terrible choices, but I love my husband. I just want to make things right." For a moment, I felt a pang of sadness for the woman I used to love. But I couldn't let her lies sway me this time. The judge, seeing right through her act, delivered the verdict. Claire was ordered to repay the stolen funds and sentenced to community service and probation. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt a sense of closure. It wasn't the perfect victory I'd hoped for, but it was a solid step toward reclaiming my life. That night, I met up with Jack and Vanessa at our favorite bar. We raised our glasses. "To new beginnings," Jack said, clinking his glass against mine. "To moving forward," Vanessa added, smiling warmly. As I looked at my friends, a wave of gratitude washed over me. Claire's betrayal had been brutal, but it had shown me who my real friends were and had pushed me to stand up for myself. Life slowly settled into a new rhythm after the court proceedings. Claire was out of my life, and I focused on rebuilding. My relationship with Vanessa grew stronger, and Jack continued to be my rock. I thought the worst was behind me, but life had one more curveball to throw my way. One evening, while Vanessa and I were having dinner, my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a second but decided to answer. Hello, is this Mike? A hesitant woman's voice asked. Yes, I replied, feeling a bit wary. Who's this? My name is Rebecca. I don't know how to say this, but I think we need to talk. It's about Claire. My heart skipped a beat. What about her? I can't explain it all over the phone. Can we meet? We agreed to meet at a quiet cafe the next day. Vanessa, ever supportive, offered to come with me, but I felt like this was something I needed to handle on my own. When I arrived, I saw a woman in her mid-30s nervously stirring her coffee. Mike? She asked as I approached the table. I nodded and sat down. What's this about? Rebecca took a deep breath. I'm Claire's sister. My mind raced. Claire had never mentioned having a sister. I didn't know she had a sister, I said, trying to process this new information. There's a lot you don't know about Claire, Rebecca replied softly. We were estranged for many years. I didn't even know she was married until recently. But there's something you need to know, something she's been hiding from everyone. Rebecca's story left me stunned. Claire had been married before. Twice, in fact. Both marriages had ended in chaos and scandal, with Claire leaving behind a trail of lies and financial ruin. She had changed her name and moved across the country each time, erasing her past as if it had never existed. I'm so sorry, Rebecca said, tears in her eyes. I didn't want to believe it myself, but when I heard about what happened to you, I knew I had to come forward. I sat there stunned. Claire's history of manipulation and deceit ran far deeper than I'd ever imagined. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. I've tried reaching out to her, but she won't talk to me. I wanted to warn you, to help you understand who she really is. After our meeting, my head was spinning with a whirlwind of emotions. That evening, I shared everything with Vanessa and Jack. They were as shocked as I was. This changes everything, Jack said, shaking his head. She's a professional con artist. Vanessa nodded thoughtfully. We need to find a way to use this information. It could help your case and protect others. I reached out to Laura and filled her in on the situation. She was floored. This is huge, Mike, she said. If we can prove her history, it'll not only strengthen your case but also prevent her from doing this to anyone else. The next few weeks were spent gathering evidence of Claire's past. Rebecca provided old photos, letters, and even court documents from Claire's previous marriages. Laura was meticulous, piecing together the timeline of Claire's deceitful life. The more we uncovered, the more apparent it became that this woman had been living a double life for years, leaving destruction in her wake. Finally, we had enough evidence to reopen the case. Claire was called back into court, and this time, there was no escaping it. The evidence was rock solid. The judge was downright appalled by her history and doubled the financial restitution she owed. On top of that, she was ordered to go through a psychological evaluation and counseling. As we left the courtroom, Rebecca approached me. Thank you for listening and believing me, she said, her voice filled with sincerity. I'm sorry for everything you've been through. Thank you for coming forward, I replied. I know that couldn't have been easy. Rebecca managed a faint smile. It was the least I could do. With the court case finally behind me, a sense of peace began to wash over me. Claire's true nature had been exposed, and justice had been served. As I glanced over at Vanessa and Jack, I felt grateful to have their support and love as I moved forward. It was time to let go of the past, but just when I thought things would finally settle down, life threw me another curveball. One evening, while Vanessa and I were enjoying a quiet dinner at home, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. Mike, it's Neil. We need to talk. It's about Claire. Neil? I muttered. The name didn't ring a bell right away. I showed the message to Vanessa, who looked just as puzzled. Who could that be? She asked. No idea, I replied, frowning. But it sounds important. We agreed to meet at a local park the next day. When I got there, a tall man with a serious expression was waiting. Mike? He asked, extending his hand. I'm Neil. I was involved with Claire a long time ago. Nice to meet you, Neil, I said, shaking his hand. So, what's this about? Neil took a deep breath. I was Claire's first husband. My mind raced. Rebecca had mentioned Claire's previous marriages, but meeting one of her ex-husbands in person felt surreal. What do you want to talk about? I heard about what happened between you and Claire, Neil began, regret clear in his voice. I went through something similar. Claire left me in ruins, just like she did to you. But there's more you need to know. Neil explained how, after Claire left him, she continued to manipulate and deceive other people. He had tried to warn them, but Claire always managed to stay a step ahead. I have information that could help you, he said, pulling out a folder. Evidence that Claire has been running these cons for years. We sat down on a park bench as he showed me documents, emails, and photos that painted a chilling picture of Claire's long history of manipulation. Why are you helping me? I asked, still trying to wrap my head around all of it. Neil looked down, his expression heavy. Because I don't want anyone else to suffer like I did. Claire destroys everything she touches. If we work together, we can make sure she doesn't hurt anyone else. I agreed to work with Neil, knowing his information could be the key to putting an end to Claire's schemes. Over the next few weeks, we dug deeper into her past. We uncovered more victims, each with their own heartbreaking stories of betrayal. It became clear just how far-reaching and devastating Claire's behavior truly was. During this time, my bond with Vanessa grew even stronger. She was my rock, always there to support and encourage me. Jack, too, remained a constant source of strength and friendship. Together, we formed a small but determined team, committed to revealing Claire's true nature. One day, as we were piecing together the final bits of evidence, I got a call from Laura. Mike, you're not gonna believe this, she said, excitement in her voice. We've found a way to bring criminal charges against Claire. With Neil's evidence and testimonies from her other victims, we can build a solid case. It was the breakthrough we had been hoping for. Laura moved fast, filing the paperwork to reopen the case and pursue criminal charges. Claire was arrested and charged with multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. The trial was intense, with Claire trying every trick she knew to dodge conviction. But the evidence was overwhelming. Neil testified, along with several other victims, painting a damning picture of Claire's deceitful life. In the end, the jury found her guilty on all charges. Claire was sentenced to several years in prison, and I felt a massive weight lift off my shoulders. Justice had finally been served, and Claire could no longer hurt anyone else. After the trial, Neil and I met up one last time. Thank you, I said, shaking his hand. I couldn't have done this without you. Neil gave a faint smile. We did this together. Hopefully, this brings some closure to all of Claire's victims. As I walked away, I felt a sense of peace. Claire's reign of terror was over, and I could finally start to rebuild my life. With Vanessa and Jack by my side, I knew I had the support and love I needed to move forward. With Claire behind bars and her schemes finally exposed, I felt a profound sense of relief. It was time to move on and build a life free from the shadows of deceit and betrayal. Vanessa and Jack stood by me, ready to embrace this new chapter together. Life slowly started to feel normal again. Vanessa and I grew closer, our bond getting stronger every day. Her love and unwavering support had been my anchor through all the chaos, and now, we could finally focus on building our future together. One sunny Saturday morning, Vanessa turned to me with a sparkle in her eyes. We need a break, she said, grinning. Let's get away for the weekend and just relax. I couldn't have agreed more. We packed up our bags and took off for a charming little seaside town. The salty breeze, the sound of waves crashing against the shore, and the warm sand under our feet were exactly what we needed. We spent our days exploring the small shops, feasting on seafood, and just enjoying each other's company. One evening, as we watched the sun dip below the horizon, Vanessa turned to me with a thoughtful look. Mike, what do you want to do next? Now that everything with Claire is behind you, what are your dreams? Her question caught me off guard. I hadn't really thought about my own aspirations in ages, not since Claire's chaos took over my life. I took a deep breath, really thinking about it. You know, I started. I've always wanted to start my own business. I have a passion for interior design. I've dreamed of opening a boutique firm that focuses on eco-friendly, sustainable designs. Vanessa's eyes lit up. That's an amazing idea, she said, excitement in her voice. You should go for it. I'll be right here supporting you every step of the way. Her enthusiasm was contagious, and for the first time in a long while, I felt a spark of excitement for the future. When we got back home, I got right to work on my plans, with Vanessa's help, of course. I put together a business plan, secured a small loan, and started setting up my own interior design firm. Jack, always the loyal friend, was right there to lend a hand. With his background in marketing, he helped me create a brand identity that really resonated with potential clients. Together, we built a website, designed promotional materials, and networked with local businesses. I couldn't have done it without the support of Vanessa and Jack. My firm, Green Spaces Design, quickly began to gain traction. Clients loved our commitment to sustainability and our innovative design solutions. I threw my heart and soul into every project, finding real fulfillment in creating beautiful, eco-friendly spaces. One day, as I was knee-deep in a particularly challenging project, I got a call from Neil. Hey Mike, how's everything going? Things are great, Neil, I replied, smiling. I've started my own business, and it's really taking off. That's fantastic to hear, he said, sounding genuinely happy for me. Actually, I'm calling because there's an opportunity one think you'd be perfect for. I've been working with a nonprofit that focuses on building sustainable housing for low-income families. They're looking for a designer with your skills and passion. I was immediately intrigued. Tell me more, I said. Neil explained that the nonprofit, Eco Homes, was dedicated to creating affordable, eco-friendly housing solutions. They needed someone to lead the design team and oversee their projects. It sounded like it lined up perfectly with my interests and values. I'm in, I said without hesitation. This sounds like an incredible opportunity. Joining Eco Homes was a game changer. I balanced my time between my firm and the nonprofit, finding immense satisfaction in using my skills to make a positive impact on the community. Working with Neil and the dedicated team at Eco Homes, we transformed lives, one sustainable home at a time. As the months went by, I realized how much I had grown and changed. The turmoil of the past was behind me, and I was thriving in ways I never thought possible. Vanessa and I were stronger than ever, and I had found a renewed sense of purpose in my work. One evening, as Vanessa and I sat on the porch of our new home, she turned to me, her eyes filled with pride and love. Mike, you've come so far. I'm so proud of you. I smiled and squeezed her hand. I couldn't have done it without you and Jack, I said, my heart full. You both stood by me when I needed it most. We're a team, she replied softly. And there's so much more ahead of us. As I looked out at the stars, a deep sense of peace and contentment settled over me. My journey had been full of unexpected twists and turns, but it had brought me to a place of strength and happiness. With Vanessa and Jack by my side, I felt ready to take on whatever the future had in store. Life settled into a fulfilling new routine. My business, Green Spaces Design, was thriving, and my work with Eco Homes brought me a sense of satisfaction I'd never felt before. Vanessa and I had moved into a beautiful, eco-friendly home that we had designed together. Jack continued to be a constant presence in our lives, always offering his unwavering support. One morning, as I was preparing for a meeting, my phone rang. It was Laura, my lawyer. Mike, I need to see you, she said, her tone serious. My heart skipped a beat. What's going on? I asked. It's about Claire, she replied, her voice heavy with concern. Can you come to my office today? Laura asked, her voice carrying a hint of urgency. I agreed and headed over, my mind racing with possibilities. When I got there, she greeted me with a somber expression. Mike, we've got some troubling news, she began. Claire has filed an appeal against her sentence. A wave of frustration washed over me. How can she do that? The evidence was overwhelming. Laura nodded. It's a long shot, but she's claiming that she didn't get a fair trial and that new evidence has come to light. Her lawyers are pushing for a retrial. I clenched my fists. What kind of evidence? She sighed. They're alleging that some of the documents we used were obtained illegally. It's a tactic to buy time, but we need to be prepared for the worst. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my emotions. What can we do? We'll fight it, Laura said firmly. But you need to be ready for anything. This could get messy. As I left her office, my mind was swirling with thoughts. Claire's appeal was a real threat to the new life I had built, and I couldn't let her drag me back into the chaos. When I told Vanessa and Jack about the appeal, they were both furious. She can't keep doing this to you, Vanessa said, her eyes flashing with anger. We'll fight her together. Jack nodded, his expression grim. Whatever you need, Mike. We're here for you. With their support, I geared up for the battle ahead. Laura and I worked tirelessly to counter Claire's claims, gathering new evidence and reinforcing our case. The stress was intense, but I refused to let Claire win. One evening, as I was burning the midnight oil at the office, Neil called. Mike, I heard about the appeal. How are you holding up? It's tough, I admitted, but we're fighting it. Neil was silent for a moment before he spoke again. There's something you should know. I've been digging into Claire's past, and I found something that could help you. What is it? I asked, feeling a glimmer of hope. Claire has a history of manipulating evidence in her previous marriages. He explained. I've found witnesses willing to testify about her tactics. This could discredit her appeal. A surge of relief washed over me. That's incredible, Neil. Thank you. Anything to help, he replied. We'll get through this. With Neil's new evidence in hand, our case grew stronger. The day of the appeal hearing finally arrived. I walked into the courtroom with Vanessa, Jack, and Neil by my side. Claire was there, looking as defiant as ever, but I felt a solid sense of resolve. The hearing was intense. Claire's lawyers threw everything they had, but Laura and I countered every point with rock-solid evidence. When Neil and the other witnesses testified about Claire's manipulative tactics, it became crystal clear that her appeal was built on nothing but lies. The judge took a recess to review the evidence, and those minutes of waiting felt like an eternity. Finally, he returned to deliver his verdict. The appeal is denied. The original sentence stands. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Relief and triumph washed over me. Claire's attempt to disrupt my life had failed. As we left the courtroom, Vanessa wrapped her arms around me. It's over, Mike. You did it. Jack clapped me on the back. You stood your ground. I'm proud of you, man. Neil gave a faint smile. Justice was served. With Claire's appeal denied, I could finally move forward without the shadow of her deceit hanging over me. I refocused on my business and my work with Eco Homes, and life began to return to normal. One evening, as Vanessa and I sat on the porch, she turned to me with a playful smile. Mike, I've been thinking. How about we take a trip? Just the two of us. We deserve a break. I grinned. That sounds perfect. Where should we go? Anywhere, she said, her eyes sparkling. As long as we're together. We planned a getaway to a remote cabin in the mountains, a peaceful spot where we could unwind and reconnect. The trip was everything we needed, quiet, serene, and full of love. One evening, as we sat by the fireplace, Vanessa looked at me with a serious expression. Mike, I have something to tell you. What is it? I asked, feeling a mix of curiosity and concern. She took my hand and smiled. I'm pregnant. The words took a second to sink in, and then a wave of joy washed over me. Really? That's amazing. She nodded, her eyes filling with happy tears. We're going to have a baby, Mike. I pulled her into my arms, feeling an overwhelming sense of happiness and hope for the future. After everything we'd been through, this new chapter felt like a precious gift. The news of Vanessa's pregnancy filled our lives with joy and excitement. The idea of starting a family felt like the beginning of a whole new journey. Over the next few weeks, we planned, prepared, and dreamed about our future. One sunny afternoon, as we were setting up the nursery, my phone rang. It was Laura. "Mike, I need to meet with you," she said, her tone urgent. A knot of worry tightened in my stomach. "I'll be there as soon as I can," I replied, glancing at Vanessa, who looked concerned. I arrived at Laura's office, bracing myself for whatever news she had. "What's going on?" I asked as soon as I sat down. Laura took a deep breath. "Mike, it's about Claire. She's been making accusations against you," Laura said, her expression grim. "She's claiming you were abusive during your marriage. She's trying to use this to reduce her sentence and possibly gain some leverage in a civil case." I was stunned. That's a complete lie. How can she do this? "It's a desperate move, but we need to take it seriously," Laura replied. "We'll need to gather character witnesses and any evidence that can disprove her claims. This could get messy." As I left Laura's office, frustration washed over me. Claire's relentless attempts to disrupt my life just seemed never-ending. When I got home, I explained the situation to Vanessa and Jack. "She just won't give up, will she?" Vanessa said, her eyes flashing with anger. "We'll fight this, Mike. We won't let her ruin our happiness." Jack nodded, his jaw set in determination. "We'll find people to testify for you. Everyone who knows you knows her claims are bogus." With their support, I started reaching out to friends, colleagues, and family members, anyone who could speak to my character and the nature of my relationship with Claire. It was an emotionally draining process, but I knew it was necessary. One evening, as Vanessa and I were going over the list of potential witnesses, my phone buzzed with a message from Neil. "Mike, I've been doing some digging. I think I found something that can help disprove Claire's accusations." We arranged to meet the next day. When Neil came over, he brought a folder of documents. "These are emails and texts between Claire and her previous husbands," Neil explained. "They show a clear pattern of manipulation and false accusations. This could help prove she's lying about you too." I was overwhelmed with gratitude. "Neil, this is incredible." "Thank you." He smiled. "We're in this together. Claire needs to be held accountable for what she's done." Armed with Neil's evidence, we presented our case. The court proceedings were intense. Claire tried to paint me as an abusive husband, but the overwhelming support from my friends, family, and Neil's damning evidence tore apart her lies. In the end, the judge ruled in our favor, dismissing Claire's accusations and upholding her original sentence. It was another victory, but it left me emotionally drained. Still, I was determined to move forward and focus on the future. With the legal battles finally behind us, Vanessa and I turned our attention back to preparing for our baby. We painted the nursery, bought tiny clothes, and went to parenting classes. Every moment was filled with anticipation and love. One evening, as we sat on the porch, Vanessa rested her hand on her growing belly and smiled at me. "Can you believe it? In a few months we'll be parents." I smiled back, feeling a deep sense of contentment. I can't wait to meet our little one. They're going to be so loved. Jack continued to be a constant presence, offering his support and getting excited about becoming an honorary uncle. Neil, too, stayed a steadfast friend, his insights proving invaluable. As Vanessa's due date approached, we found ourselves surrounded by love and support from friends and family. The hardships of the past had brought us all closer together, forging unbreakable bonds. One evening, as we were getting dinner ready, Vanessa suddenly gasped and clutched her belly. "Mike, I think it's time," she said, her voice a mix of excitement and nervousness. We rushed to the hospital, and after several hours of labor, our beautiful baby girl, Lily, was born. Holding her in my arms for the first time, I felt an overwhelming sense of love and protection. This tiny, perfect being represented a new beginning, a fresh start filled with hope and promise. When we brought Lily home, it felt more like home than ever before. The nursery was ready, filled with soft blankets and adorable toys. Vanessa and I spent countless hours marveling at our daughter, amazed by every little sound and movement. Jack and Neil visited often, showering Lily with gifts and affection. Our home was now filled with laughter and love, a stark contrast to the turmoil of the past. One evening, as we sat in the living room, Vanessa looked at me with a tender smile. "Mike, we've been through so much, but we made it," she said softly. "We're stronger because of it." I nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "We've got a beautiful family and amazing friends. We're ready for whatever comes next." Parenthood brought a whirlwind of joy, sleepless nights, and endless love. Vanessa and I were captivated by every milestone Lily reached, her first smile, her first word, her first steps. Our lives revolved around this tiny, perfect being, and every challenge felt like a small price to pay for the happiness she brought us. As the months went by, our home filled with warmth and laughter. Jack and Neil became regular visitors, doting on Lily like proud uncles. Our circle of friends grew even closer, bound by the shared journey of overcoming adversity and embracing new beginnings. One sunny afternoon, while we were having a picnic in the park, Jack approached me with a thoughtful look on his face. "Mike, there's something I've been meaning to talk to you about," he said, looking serious. I raised an eyebrow, curious. "What's on your mind?" "Well," he began, "I've been thinking about starting a new project, a community center that focuses on sustainable living and eco-friendly practices. I want it to be a place where people can learn, share ideas, and work together to make a positive impact." "That sounds incredible, Jack," I said, genuinely impressed. "How can I help?" Jack smiled. "I was hoping you'd ask. I need someone with your expertise in design to help plan and create the space. And I'd love for Vanessa to be involved too, given her passion for environmental advocacy." Vanessa, who had been listening nearby, nodded eagerly. "Count me in. This sounds like a fantastic project." With the support of our friends and the local community, we dove headfirst into planning and developing the new center. It became a labor of love, combining our skills and passions to create something truly meaningful. The project brought a renewed sense of purpose and excitement, and we worked tirelessly to bring our vision to life. As the grand opening of the center approached, I took a moment to reflect on how far we had come. From the turmoil and heartbreak caused by Claire's betrayal to the joy of building a new life with Vanessa and Lily, our journey had been filled with both challenges and triumphs. The opening day of the community center was an overwhelming success. Families, friends, and neighbors came out to celebrate, eager to learn about the sustainable initiatives we had planned. It was a day filled with hope and inspiration, a testament to the power of resilience and community spirit. That evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Vanessa turned to me with a contented smile. "We did it, Mike. We created something beautiful." I wrapped my arm around her, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. We did it together. And this is just the beginning. Lily, now a curious toddler, toddled over to us with her eyes wide in wonder. She reached up to be held, and as I lifted her into my arms, I felt an immense sense of gratitude. Our journey had been a long and winding road, but it had brought us to this moment, a life filled with love, purpose, and endless possibilities. As the days turned into months and months into years, our lives continued to be filled with new adventures and cherished memories. The community center thrived, becoming a hub of innovation and collaboration. Our family grew stronger, bound by love and the support of our friends and each other. Jack found love himself, marrying a wonderful woman named Emily who shared his passion for sustainability. Neil continued to be a cherished friend and ally, his own journey of healing and growth inspiring us all. One evening, as we gathered with our friends to celebrate another milestone at the community center, I looked around at the faces of those who had become our family. The laughter, the camaraderie, the shared sense of purpose, it was everything I had ever hoped for and more. Vanessa squeezed my hand, her eyes sparkling with happiness. "Mike, we've built something truly special. Our past doesn't define us. It's the choices we make and the love we share that shape our future." I smiled, feeling a deep sense of peace. "You're right. And with you by my side, I know we can face anything that comes our way." As the sun set on that perfect evening, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey we had traveled. The trials and tribulations, the joys and triumphs, they had all led us to this moment. And with Vanessa, Lily, and our incredible friends by my side, I knew that the future was bright and filled with endless possibilities.